The sound of my phone ringing at 6 in the morning on a Sunday was never a good sign, especially during a Minnesota winter that had dumped 14 inches of fresh snow overnight. I grabbed it off my nightstand, squinting at the bright screen showing an unknown number from Rochester. "Carter Irving speaking," I said, my voice still rough with sleep. "This is Patricia Henderson from the Meadowbrook Hills Homeowners Association. I'm calling to inform you that our community parking lot is completely unplowed and residents are unable to access their vehicles. This is unacceptable and I expect you here within the hour to clear it." I sat up in bed, fully awake now. "I'm sorry, who gave you my number? That's irrelevant. You're the snow removal contractor for this area and you have a responsibility to maintain our property." "Madam, I only plow properties that have active contracts with me. I don't have any agreement with Meadowbrook Hills." Her voice turned sharp. "Young man, I don't think you understand the severity of this situation. We have elderly residents who cannot get out, people who need to get to work, and emergency vehicles that might not be able to access our community. As a business operating in Rochester, you have an obligation to serve the community." I rubbed my eyes, trying to keep my patience intact. "That's not how business works. I have a route with 23 properties that pay me for seasonal contracts. If Meadowbrook Hills wants snow removal services, you're welcome to call my office during business hours tomorrow and we can discuss rates. This is an emergency situation." Then I'd suggest calling one of the emergency snow removal services in the area. They charge premium rates for immediate service, but they are available. Patricia made a sound like a tea kettle about to blow. "I've already called 3 companies and they're all booked solid because of this storm. You're going to come plow our lot, or I'll have you reported to the city for refusing to provide essential services." "Madam, that's not a real thing. I'm a private contractor." "I'll be happy to help you once we have a contract in place, but I have 23 paying customers waiting for me right now. Good morning." I hung up before she could respond. My phone immediately started ringing again with the same number. I declined the call, then blocked it. I'd been running Irving snow removal for 5 years, and this wasn't the first time someone had tried to demand free service by throwing around empty threats. I got dressed, downed 2 cups of coffee, and headed out to my truck. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the fresh snow in shades of pink and orange. My route started with the commercial properties downtown, then wound through several residential neighborhoods before finishing with a small office park on the east side. It would take me at least 8 hours to get through everything. I was 3 properties in, working on clearing the parking lot of a dental office, when a black Mercedes SUV pulled up alongside my truck. A woman in her late 40s climbed out, dressed in a cream-colored wool coat that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Her blonde hair was styled in that particular way that screamed, "I'd like to speak to the manager," and her expression matched the voice I'd heard on the phone that morning. "Excuse me, are you Carter Irving?" she called out over the sound of my plow. I finished the pass I was making, then lowered the blade and climbed out of my truck. "That's me. Can I help you? I'm Patricia Henderson. I called you this morning about Meadowbrook Hills." She crossed her arms over her chest, her breath fogging in the cold air. "I thought I made it clear that we needed immediate service. And I thought I made it clear that I only service properties with active contracts. How did you find me? I called your office number and got your route information from your voicemail. It lists your general service area and timing." She took a step closer. "Mr. Irving, I don't think you understand the position you're putting yourself in. Meadowbrook Hills is a prestigious community with over 200 homes. We have connections throughout Rochester's business community. Refusing to help us in our time of need is not a good look for your company." I leaned against my truck, genuinely amazed at the audacity. "Miss Henderson, let me explain something to you. Every property I'm servicing today pays me between $2,000 and $5,000 for a seasonal contract. That money pays for my equipment, fuel, insurance, and yes, my time. The reason I'm able to get here within hours of a storm is because these people paid in advance for that guaranteed service. I can't just abandon them to plow a parking lot for someone who isn't a customer. We'll pay you." She said quickly, "Great. My office opens at 9 tomorrow. You can call and set up a contract for the rest of the season." "No, I mean we'll pay you to plow today, right now. Clear our lot and we'll write you a check." I shook my head. "That's not how my business works. I don't do one-off jobs during storm season. I'm booked solid from November through March with contract work." Her eyes narrowed. "How much? Excuse me. How much to come plow our lot today? Name your price." I considered it for a moment. My contract rate for a parking lot, the size of what I'd seen on Meadowbrook Hill's website, would be around $4,000 for the season. An emergency single service would typically run about $500, but this woman was starting to seriously annoy me. I'd need $2,000 cash up front, and it would be after I finish my current route, so probably around 6 or 7 tonight. Patricia's face turned red. $2,000 to plow one parking lot. That's highway robbery. That's the emergency rate for demanding service from a fully booked contractor. Take it or leave it." I moved toward my truck door. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have paying customers to take care of." "This isn't over," she called after me as I climbed back in. "The HOA board will be hearing about this, and I promise you we will make sure every homeowner in Rochester knows about your terrible business practices." I gave her a small wave and got back to work. The Mercedes peeled out of the parking lot, throwing slush everywhere. I made a mental note to check if they actually did try to trash my reputation online, though I wasn't too worried. My customer satisfaction ratings were solid, and most people understood how contract work functioned. The rest of my route went smoothly until around 2 in the afternoon. I was finishing up a cul-de-sac in the Pleasant Grove neighborhood when my phone rang. This time it was a number I recognized as one of my commercial clients. "Carter, this is Doug Miller from Miller Hardware." "Hey Doug, I cleared your lot around 8 this morning. Everything okay?" "Yeah, the lot looks great. Listen, I just had a woman come into my store asking if I knew you, Patricia something. She was telling my customers that you're an unreliable contractor who refuses to provide emergency services." I felt a spike of anger in my chest. "She tell you the whole story?" "She tried, but I shut her down pretty quick. Told her I've been your client for 4 years and you've never let me down once. Just wanted to give you a heads up that she's apparently making the rounds." "Thanks for the call, Doug. I appreciate you having my back." "No problem. See you next storm." I hung up and sat in my truck for a moment, watching the snow fall. Patricia Henderson was actually going around town trying to damage my reputation because I wouldn't drop everything to provide free service to her HOA. The audacity was almost impressive. My phone rang again, then again. Over the next hour, I got 5 more calls from various clients and business owners in Rochester, all reporting that Patricia had come by to complain about me. The funny thing was, not a single one of them seemed sympathetic to her cause. Most found it absurd that she expected immediate free service, and several offered to serve as references if I needed them. By the time I finished my route at 7 that evening, I was exhausted, hungry, and more than a little annoyed. I headed home to my small house on the south side of Rochester, looking forward to a hot shower and dinner. Instead, I found a bright orange sticker on my front door. Notice of violation. It read in bold letters. Below that, the property at 847 Oakmont Street is in violation of City Code Section 12.4.7 regarding snow removal from public sidewalks. The sidewalk must be cleared within 24 hours of snowfall cessation, or a fine of $100 per day will be assessed. This is your first and only warning. I stared at the sticker in disbelief. My sidewalk was perfectly clear. I'd shoveled it myself before leaving this morning, and I'd even cleared my elderly neighbor's sidewalk while I was at it. I walked down to the street and examined the sidewalk in front of my house. There was maybe half an inch of fresh snow that had fallen in the last hour, barely enough to leave footprints in. I pulled out my phone and called the non-emergency number for city services. Rochester City Services, this is Amanda. Hi, my name is Carter Irving. I just got home to find a violation notice on my door for snow removal, but my sidewalk is completely clear. I'm wondering if this was filed in error. Let me pull up your address. Can you give me that? 847 Oakmont Street. I heard typing on the other end. Okay, I see the complaint was filed at 3:15 this afternoon by a concerned citizen. The inspector confirmed the violation at 4:30. The report says your sidewalk had approximately 4 inches of uncleared snow. That's completely false. I cleared it this morning and I'm looking at it right now. There's barely any snow on it at all. Do you have any proof that you cleared it this morning? I didn't exactly take a photo, no. I just shoveled my sidewalk like I do every time it snows. Amanda's voice took on a sympathetic tone. Unfortunately, without evidence to the contrary, the inspector's report stands. You can file an appeal, but it needs to be submitted in writing within 5 business days. Who filed the complaint? I can't release that information. It's kept confidential to protect citizens who report violations. I thanked her and hung up, feeling my jaw clench. This had Patricia Henderson written all over it. I took several photos of my clearly shoveled sidewalk, noting the timestamp, then went inside to file an appeal online. My suspicions were confirmed Monday morning when I arrived at my office, a small space I rented in a commercial building on Broadway Avenue. There was an email waiting from the Meadowbrook Hills HOA. Dear Mr. Irving, this letter serves as formal notice that your business practices have come to the attention of the Meadowbrook Hills Homeowners Association Board of Directors. Your refusal to provide emergency snow removal services to our community during yesterday's storm demonstrates a shocking lack of community spirit and basic decency. We believe that businesses operating in Rochester have a moral obligation to assist residents in times of need, regardless of financial considerations. Your decision to prioritize profit over people is noted and will be shared with our extensive network of homeowners and business professionals throughout the city. Additionally, we have filed formal complaints with the Better Business Bureau and the Rochester Chamber of Commerce regarding your unethical business practices. We strongly suggest you reconsider your approach to customer service. Signed, Patricia Henderson, HOA President, Meadowbrook Hills Community. I read the email twice, then forwarded it to my lawyer, Mike Torres. He called me back within 20 minutes. Carter, this is bordering on harassment, Mike said. She's essentially threatening to damage your business reputation because you wouldn't provide free service. Can we do anything about it? Document everything. Save all communications. Get statements from the business owners she's contacted. Take screenshots of any online reviews or posts she makes. If she actually does damage your business, you might have grounds for a defamation suit. What about the bogus city violation? That's trickier. If you can prove she filed a false report, that's potentially criminal, but the city keeps those complaints confidential. Your best bet is to go through the appeal process and get the violation dismissed. I spent the rest of Monday dealing with the fallout. I filed my appeal with the city, providing photos and a statement. I responded to the BBB complaint with a detailed explanation of my business model and copies of my contract agreements. The Chamber of Commerce complaint was easier because I knew several board members personally, and they dismissed it after a 5-minute phone call. Tuesday brought another 14-inch snowfall, which meant I was back out at 4 in the morning running my route. This time, I made sure to take a photo of my cleared sidewalk before I left, along with a photo of my timestamp showing the date and time. I was plowing the parking lot of an apartment complex on Civic Center Drive when a Rochester police cruiser pulled up beside my truck. I lowered the blade and climbed out, wondering what was going on now. "Mr. Irving." The officer was a young guy, probably late 20s, with a nameplate that read K. Stevens. "That's me. Is there a problem, officer? I need to ask you about an incident involving Meadowbrook Hills HOA. We received a complaint that you've been harassing the HOA president." I actually laughed, which probably wasn't the smartest response. "Officer, I think you've got that backwards. Patricia Henderson has been harassing me since Sunday morning." Stevens pulled out a notepad. "Can you walk me through what happened?" I explained the entire situation, from the 6 a.m. phone call to the violation sticker to the threatening email. Stevens took notes, his expression growing increasingly skeptical. "You have any documentation of these interactions?" "I've got the phone call in my call history, though I blocked her number after. I have the violation sticker, photos of my cleared sidewalk, and the email she sent. Plus, I can give you the names and numbers of about 7 business owners she contacted trying to trash my reputation." "Can you forward me that email?" I pulled out my phone and sent it to the email address on his card. He read it on his phone, frowning. "This doesn't look like harassment from your end. Her complaint alleges that you showed up at Meadowbrook Hills yesterday and threatened her." "I've never been to Meadowbrook Hills in my life. I don't even know where their parking lot is beyond what I saw on their website." Stevens made a few more notes. "Okay, I'm going to file this report as unfounded. If she continues to contact you or make false reports, let us know and we can potentially pursue harassment charges against her." "Thanks, officer." He headed back to his cruiser and I got back to work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Patricia Henderson wasn't going to let this go. She'd gone from demanding free service to actively trying to destroy my livelihood, and people like that didn't usually stop until something forced them to. I was right. Wednesday morning, I woke up to find that someone had spray-painted "Scam Artist" across the side of my truck in bright red letters. I immediately called the police and filed a report, then spent 2 hours at a body shop getting an estimate for the damage. The cheapest quote was $1,800. "We've got you on camera," the body shop owner told me, a guy named Frank who I'd done snow removal for the past 3 winters. "I mean, not here, but I've got a security camera that covers part of the street outside my shop. Let me pull the footage from last night." We went into his office and he brought up the security footage on his computer. The camera angle wasn't great, but at 11:47 p.m., a black Mercedes SUV was clearly visible driving slowly past my truck. The driver's face wasn't visible, but the license plate was. "I'll get this to the police," Frank said, already copying the file to a USB drive. "No charge for the footage or the estimate. This is messed up, Carter." I filed another police report, this time including the security footage. The officer who took my statement looked at the license plate and ran it through their system. "Vehicle is registered to Patricia Henderson," he said, looking up from his computer. Same person from your harassment complaint. Can you arrest her? We'll send an officer to question her. If she admits to it, or we can prove she was driving, we can charge her with criminal mischief. That's a misdemeanor. It wasn't enough, but it was something. I left the police station and headed to my office, only to find a cease and desist letter that had been delivered by courier that morning. The letter, from a law firm called Henderson and Associates, demanded that I stop defaming Patricia Henderson and Meadowbrook Hills HOA. It threatened legal action if I continued to make false statements about their attempts to obtain snow removal services. I called Mike Torres immediately. Henderson and Associates is her husband's law firm, Mike told me after I read him the letter. This is getting ridiculous. They're trying to intimidate you into backing down. What do I do? Ignore it. It's a baseless threat. We have documentation of everything that's actually happened. In fact, I think it's time we went on the offense. I'm going to draft a letter to Patricia Henderson and the Meadowbrook Hills HOA board outlining their harassment and vandalism, and demanding they cease all contact with you. If they continue, we'll file for a restraining order and pursue a civil suit for damages. Do it. The next few days were tense. I continued running my snow removal route, but I was constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering what Patricia would do next. I installed a security camera on my house and started parking my truck in a friend's garage overnight. Mike's letter went out Friday afternoon, sent by certified mail to both Patricia's home address and the Meadowbrook Hills HOA office address. I thought maybe that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Saturday morning, I got a call from one of my biggest commercial clients, a medical center that paid me $6,000 a season to maintain their large parking lot and access roads. Carter, it's Daniel Moss from Riverside Medical. I need to talk to you about your contract. My stomach dropped. Is there a problem with the service? No, your work is great, but I got a very concerning call from the Meadowbrook Hills HOA president. She told me that you're under investigation for several criminal complaints and that our medical center might be held liable if we continue employing a contractor with legal issues. Mr. Moss, none of that is true. Patricia Henderson has been harassing me for a week because I wouldn't plow their parking lot for free. Everything she's told you is a lie. I figured as much, which is why I'm calling you instead of just terminating the contract. But Carter, I've got a board of directors breathing down my neck. They're worried about the medical center's reputation. I understand. I'll have my lawyer send you documentation of everything that's actually happened, including the police reports. You can share that with your board. I'd appreciate that. And Carter, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. It sounds like a nightmare. It was a nightmare, and it was getting worse. Over the weekend, I received 3 more calls from clients who had been contacted by Patricia. She was systematically going through my customer list, which she must have gotten from my website, and telling them I was unreliable and under investigation. Monday morning, Mike called me with an update. The police arrested Patricia Henderson this morning for criminal mischief related to the vandalism of your truck. The security footage was enough to charge her, and when they questioned her, she apparently admitted to it. She's being released on bail, but there's going to be a court date. That's something, at least. There's more. I've been doing some digging into Meadowbrook Hills HOA. Turns out they don't actually have the legal authority to operate as an HOA. What do you mean? HOAs have to be properly registered with the state and have specific legal documentation. Meadowbrook Hills never completed the registration process. They've been operating as an informal neighborhood association, but they don't have any of the legal protections or authorities that a real HOA would have. which means Patricia has been signing letters and making threats on behalf of an organization that doesn't legally exist. I sat back in my chair, processing this. So, what does that mean for us? It means she's been falsely representing herself as having authority she doesn't possess. That's fraud. I've reported this to the state attorney general's office. They're going to investigate. Things moved quickly after that. The state investigation revealed that Patricia and her husband had been collecting HOA dues from Meadowbrook Hills residents for 3 years, totaling over $100,000, despite never actually forming a legal HOA. The money was supposed to go toward community improvements and maintenance, but most of it had been deposited into a personal account controlled by Patricia. The story hit the local news on Wednesday. I watched the evening broadcast from my living room as a reporter stood outside the Henderson home, explaining how an unlicensed HOA had been collecting dues under false pretenses. Patricia Henderson, who has been acting as the self-appointed president of Meadowbrook Hills Homeowners Association, was arrested today on multiple charges including fraud, embezzlement, and making false statements to police. Her husband, attorney James Henderson, is also under investigation for his role in the scheme. Residents of Meadowbrook Hills are being advised to contact the state attorney general's office if they paid dues to the organization. My phone started ringing almost immediately. It was a reporter from the Rochester Post-Bulletin. "Mr. Irving, I'm writing a story about the Meadowbrook Hills HOA fraud case. I understand you were one of the people targeted by Patricia Henderson." I gave her a brief interview, explaining what had happened without being too specific about the legal details. The story ran the next morning with the headline "Snow Removal Dispute Uncovers Major HOA Fraud." Within days, I was flooded with calls from Meadowbrook Hills residents who wanted to apologize and hire me for snow removal. I had to turn most of them down because I was fully booked, but I gave them referrals to other reputable contractors I knew. The legal process took months. Patricia Henderson was eventually charged with multiple felonies, including theft by fraud, embezzlement, and filing false police reports. Her husband lost his law license for ethics violations. The criminal mischief charge for vandalizing my truck was almost an afterthought compared to the bigger charges. I attended the sentencing hearing in May, sitting in the back of the courtroom as the judge reviewed the case. Patricia stood at the defendant's table in a conservative blue suit, looking nothing like the aggressive woman who had confronted me in that parking lot months ago. "Miss Henderson, you used your position of perceived authority to defraud over 80 families out of their hard-earned money," the judge said. "You filed false police reports, vandalized private property, and attempted to destroy a legitimate businessman's reputation, all because he refused to provide you with free services. This court finds your behavior to be a gross abuse of the trust your neighbors placed in you." Patricia was sentenced to 3 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 18 months. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to all the Meadowbrook Hills residents she defrauded, plus damages to me for the vandalism and business interference. The restitution amount was over $130,000. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in months. Mike met me on the steps. "Well, that's over," he said. "Think I'll actually see any of that money, eventually. They'll probably have to sell their house to cover it. But yeah, you'll get paid for the truck repairs and lost business at minimum." The story had a few more chapters to play out. The residents of Meadowbrook Hills did eventually form a legitimate HOA with proper registration and oversight. They hired a management company to handle the finances and operations. And ironically, One of their first official acts was to contract with Irving snow removal for the following winter season. I met with their new board president, a retired teacher named Margaret Walsh, in August to discuss terms. "Mr. Irving, I want to apologize on behalf of our entire community for what Patricia put you through," Margaret said. "What she did was unconscionable, and it doesn't represent the values of our neighborhood." "I appreciate that, Mrs. Walsh. We'd like to offer you a 5-year contract for snow removal services if you're willing to work with us. I know that after everything that happened, you might not want to." I thought about it for a moment. The easy answer would have been no, to just walk away from anything connected to that nightmare. But the residents of Meadowbrook Hills were victims too. They'd been scammed by someone they trusted, and they deserved reliable service just like anyone else. "Let's talk terms," I said. We worked out a fair contract that covered their main parking lot and the private streets within the community. The payment terms were strict and clear, with money held in an escrow account managed by the property management company. No more personal accounts, no more self-appointed authorities. The first snow of the following season came in early November. I was out at 4 in the morning, running my route as usual. When I pulled into Meadowbrook Hills around 7, I found Margaret waiting with a thermos of coffee and a thank you card signed by most of the residents. "You showed up," she said, handing me the coffee. "That's what you're paying me for," I replied with a smile. "No, I mean you showed up despite everything. A lot of people would have told us to deal with it ourselves. I'm just doing my job, Mrs. Walsh." The parking lot took about 45 minutes to clear. When I finished, several residents came out to wave and thank me. It felt good, like closing a chapter that had started so badly and somehow ended with something positive. Patricia Henderson served her 18 months and was released on parole. I heard through the local news that she'd moved to Iowa after her release, trying to start over somewhere people didn't know her story. Her husband's law practice had dissolved, and he was working as a paralegal at a firm in Minneapolis, the only legal work he could get without a license. As for me, business was better than ever. The publicity from the case, while stressful at the time, had actually helped my reputation. People saw me as someone who stood up for fair business practices and didn't back down from bullies. I had to hire 2 additional trucks and drivers to handle all the new contracts. I also became something of an advocate for other small business owners dealing with similar situations. I gave a talk at the Chamber of Commerce about standing up to harassment and documenting everything. Several contractors reached out to thank me for sharing my story and to ask for advice on their own situations. The biggest lesson I learned was that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, eventually pays off. I could have caved to Patricia's demands that first morning, plowed their parking lot for free just to avoid conflict. But that would have been unfair to my paying customers and would have set a terrible precedent for my business. Instead, I stuck to my principles, weathered the storm of harassment and false accusations, and came out the other side with my reputation intact and my business stronger than ever. Patricia Henderson, on the other hand, lost everything because she couldn't accept a simple no. The irony wasn't lost on me that if she'd just called during business hours that Monday and set up a normal contract, none of this would have happened. Her parking lot would have been plowed all winter long for a reasonable seasonal rate, and she'd still be living in her nice house in Rochester, running her fake HOA. But people like Patricia don't think that way. They believe the world owes them immediate service, special treatment, and compliance with their demands. When they don't get it, they lash out, trying to force others to bend to their will through intimidation and harassment. The criminal justice system, for all its flaws, did work in this case. Patricia was held accountable for her actions. The victims got their money back, mostly, and I got compensation for the damages she caused. It took time, effort, and legal fees, but justice was served. I still think about that first phone call sometimes. Patricia's entitled voice demanding that I drop everything to plow her parking lot for free. I think about how that single interaction spiraled into vandalism, fraud charges, and prison time. All because she couldn't accept that business relationships require mutual agreement, not one-sided demands. Every winter when I drive past Meadowbrook Hills, I remember. But now, instead of anger or frustration, I feel something closer to satisfaction. Their parking lot is always perfectly cleared now, maintained under a proper contract with fair terms for both parties. That's how it should have been from the start. The legal settlement money finally came through about a year after the sentencing. After lawyer fees, I cleared about $23,000. I used some of it to upgrade my equipment and put the rest into savings. The truck repairs had already been paid for by my insurance, which then went after Patricia's insurance for reimbursement. I also received several thank you letters from Meadowbrook Hills residents who got their HOA dues refunded. One couple, the Martins, even sent me a gift basket with a note saying, "Thank you for not letting Patricia Henderson get away with it. Your integrity exposed her fraud and saved our retirement savings." That meant more than the money. My business continued to grow. By the third winter after the incident, I had 5 trucks and a small office staff. I was doing snow removal for over 60 properties, from small residential driveways to large commercial parking lots. The company I'd built on principles of fair dealing and reliable service had become one of the most trusted names in Rochester. I never heard from Patricia Henderson again. No calls, no letters, no surprise confrontations in parking lots. She disappeared from Rochester entirely, becoming just a cautionary tale that people told about HOA overreach and entitled behavior. The fake HOA case became something of a landmark in Minnesota. The state legislature actually passed new laws requiring stricter registration and oversight of homeowners associations, partly in response to what happened at Meadowbrook Hills. Community associations now had to maintain transparent financial records and couldn't collect dues without proper legal authorization. I was invited to speak at a state legislative committee hearing about the need for these reforms. It was surreal, sitting in the Capitol building in St. Paul, telling my story to elected officials who were taking notes and asking questions about how to prevent similar fraud in the future. "Mr. Irving, what would you say to other small business owners who face similar harassment?" One senator asked me, "Document everything, don't back down from your principles, and get good legal advice early." If I'd caved to Patricia Henderson's initial demands, she would have kept pushing for more. Standing firm and maintaining records of her harassment is what eventually protected me and exposed her fraud. The hearing made the news, and I got another wave of publicity. This time it was entirely positive, with me being portrayed as a small business owner who stood up to corruption and helped change state law. It was nice, though a bit embarrassing. I was just trying to run my business fairly. Life settled into a new normal. Winters meant long days of plowing, managing my crew, and making sure all our contracts were fulfilled properly. Summers meant equipment maintenance, contract renewals, and planning for the next season. It was good, honest work. 3 years after Patricia's sentencing, I got an unexpected call from Margaret Walsh. "Carter, I wanted to let you know that we're dedicating our new community center next month." The board voted to name it the Community Integrity Center in honor of the lessons we learned from the Patricia Henderson situation. We'd be honored if you'd speak at the dedication. Mrs. Walsh, I appreciate the thought, but I'm not sure what I'd say. I just didn't let someone push me around. That's exactly why you should speak. You showed integrity when it would have been easier to just go along. That's worth celebrating. I agreed, mostly because I didn't want to disappoint Margaret. She'd become a friend over the years, always professional in our business relationship, but also genuinely kind. The dedication ceremony was on a sunny Saturday in June. About 100 Meadowbrook Hills residents gathered around their new community center, a modest building that had been funded by the recovered HOA dues and additional community contributions. There were speeches from board members, a ribbon cutting, and then Margaret introduced me. This community went through a difficult period, I told the crowd. We were deceived, harassed, and taken advantage of, but we came out stronger. We learned the importance of transparency, accountability, and treating people fairly. We learned that authority without legitimacy is just bullying. And we learned that standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, matters. There was applause, which felt strange. I wasn't a hero. I was just a guy who refused to plow a parking lot for free and got caught up in a much bigger scandal. But if my story helped others learn these lessons, maybe that was worth something. After the ceremony, I mingled with the residents. Several people thanked me for exposing Patricia's fraud. Others apologized for not standing up to her sooner, saying they'd known something was off about how she ran things but didn't want to make waves. That's how people like her succeed, I told one older gentleman who seemed particularly upset with himself. They count on everyone being too polite or too afraid to question them. Don't beat yourself up about it. You know better now. Driving home that evening, I reflected on how much had changed since that angry phone call at 6 in the morning. I'd gone from being a relatively unknown contractor to someone recognized around town, from running a small one-truck operation to managing a real company with employees and growth potential. But the core of what I did hadn't changed. I still got up before dawn during winter storms. I still made sure every contracted property was cleared properly and on time. I still believed that fair dealing and honest work mattered more than quick money or cutting corners. Patricia Henderson had tried to force me to compromise those values, and when I wouldn't, she tried to destroy me. Instead, she destroyed herself. Her fraud and harassment had been exposed, and she'd lost everything while I came out stronger. There's probably a lesson there about karma or justice, but I think it's simpler than that. Actions have consequences. Build your life and business on lies and intimidation, and eventually it collapses. Build it on integrity and fair dealing, and it weathers the storms. The story officially ended for me the day I received the final payment from the restitution account. It was a check for $800, the last bit of what Patricia owed me. I deposited it, closed the file in my records, and moved on, but the impact lasted much longer. The relationships I'd built with my clients during that difficult time were stronger. The lessons I'd learned about standing firm and documenting everything made me a better business owner. And the knowledge that doing the right thing, even when it's costly and difficult, pays off in the end gave me confidence to face future challenges. I still get the occasional demanding customer, someone who thinks they can push me around or demand special treatment. The difference now is that I have a clear template for how to handle them. Stay polite but firm, explain my business model clearly, and don't compromise on my principles. And if they cross the line into harassment, I know exactly how to document and respond. None of them have been as aggressively terrible as Patricia Henderson, which is probably good for everyone involved. But each time I have to tell someone no, I think back to that Sunday morning phone call and remind myself that this is how ethical business works. You provide good service to paying customers, you honor your commitments, and you don't let entitled people push you around. Irving's snow removal is now in its 8th year. We're still growing steadily, still maintaining our reputation for reliability and fair dealing. I've hired more staff, expanded our service area, and even branched into landscaping during the off-season. The company I almost lost to one woman's vindictive harassment has become something I'm genuinely proud of. And Meadowbrook Hills. Their parking lot gets plowed every storm, their streets stay clear all winter, and their residents know exactly where their HOA dues are going because everything is transparent and properly managed. It's what should have been from the beginning, achieved the hard way through exposure and reform. Sometimes I drive past the old Henderson house, which was sold to pay the restitution debts. A young family lives there now, with kids who play in the yard and neighbors who wave as they pass. The house itself hasn't changed, but the shadow that hung over it is gone. That's what justice looks like, I think. Not just punishment for the guilty, but restoration for the victims and a return to normalcy for everyone affected. Patricia Henderson paid her debt to society and to her victims. The community moved on. And I kept building my business on the same principles that got me through the worst of it. The story comes up occasionally in local business circles, usually as a cautionary tale about HOA overreach or a positive example of standing up for your principles. I've stopped being embarrassed by the attention. If my experience helps other small business owners avoid similar situations, or gives them the courage to stand firm when faced with unreasonable demands, that's a good thing. I keep the original violation sticker from my door framed in my office, right next to my business license. It's a reminder of where the whole thing started, with a false accusation meant to intimidate me into compliance. Below it is a photo from the community center dedication, showing Margaret Walsh and me shaking hands in front of the new building. These two images tell the complete story better than any words could. The attempted intimidation and the positive outcome. The conflict and the resolution. The wrong way to wield authority and the right way to respond to it. My phone still rings early during snowstorms, but now it's my crew checking in about routes or customers thanking me for quick service. No more entitled HOA presidents demanding free labor. No more threats or harassment. Just honest work, fair compensation, and the satisfaction of running a business the right way. That Sunday morning phone call changed my life in ways I never could have predicted. It led to the worst few months of my professional career, followed by growth and success I hadn't imagined possible. It taught me that standing up for yourself and your principles, even against someone who seems powerful and connected, is always worth it. Patricia Henderson thought she could bully me into submission because I was just a small contractor, and she was the HOA president of a prestigious community. She learned, too late, that authority without legitimacy is meaningless, and that attacking someone for refusing to be exploited leads nowhere good. I hope she's doing better now, wherever she is. I hope she learned from her mistakes and is living a quieter, more honest life. But mostly, I don't think about her much anymore. She's a closed chapter, a story with an ending, a lesson learned and applied. What matters now is the work ahead. Every winter brings new storms to clear, new contracts to fulfill, new challenges to face. And every time my phone rings at an unreasonable hour with an unreasonable demand, I remember how that story ended and I know exactly what to say. I only plow properties that pay me. If you'd like to discuss a contract, my office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. It's amazing how much trouble you can avoid with just those 2 sentences and the backbone to stick to them. Patricia Henderson never learned that lesson, but I did, and that's made all the difference.